So I think that by not having children and also choosing to go vegan, to not eat animals, that would be better. Now, the end result, I'm a bit nervous about this conversation just because there are different, it's very theoretical whether it would be a good thing for humans, not like the human race, to go extinct or not.
Allah does say in the Quran, are you the creators of yourself?
Or did you come from nothing?
Or did you come from nothing? So that's
rhetorical
one could argue it's a
question.
rhetorical question, and it makes a person sit down and think, well, actually, did I create myself? In other words, did everything just come from nothing? Are we the creators of ourselves? In other words, Allah is telling us and informing us that if you use your reason, that you will arrive at the something has to always exist. Those who manage to pass that test that Allah has put on humanity, for them is paradise. Now, we may say, well, I don't agree with that test. I don't like that test. I don't like hell. I don't like this concept. Guess what? Not liking something doesn't change the reality of whether it exists or it doesn't exist, right? That's the important thing here. What happens is a lot of people, they say, well, what sort of a God would do this? What sort of a God would do that? Mate, it doesn't matter what you think.
Voluntary non-procreation.
Effectively, it would mean that we would die out as a race.
So it would be people choosing not to procreate, but also not just procreating. There are other decisions where we do bring beings into existence. The biggest one in the West in particular is animal agriculture. So we pay for animals to be brought into existence on farms and slaughterhouses. Unfortunately, many of them live quite bad lives and die some quite painful and bloody deaths in slaughterhouses. So I think that by not having children and also choosing to go vegan, to not eat animals, that would be better. Now, the end result, and we can maybe we can talk. I'm a bit nervous about this conversation just because there are different. It's very theoretical whether it would be a good thing for humans, not like the human race, to go extinct or not.
Right.
And there are different arguments for and against that.
Okay.
But on an individual basis, I do think it would be good for individuals to refrain from creating new sentient beings.
And in effect, if everyone were to follow your teachings,
yes,
your recommendations, your,
yes,
your sort of thoughts,
yeah,
then the natural progression to that
yes,
would be that
the end result would be that we would go extinct.
We would
yes.
go extinct. There'd be
yes.
no humans left on Earth.
Yes.
Okay. Now, from your perspective, I presume that God is not in the picture, obviously, right?
No, I'm an atheist.
You're an atheist.
And not an atheist in the fact that I'm maybe what would more colloquially be called an agnostic.
Agnostic.
In the sense of, not that I'm convinced that there is no God, but that I'm not personally convinced that there is one.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, fair enough. So my question to you really would be this, that your thought process, clearly you would accept that it's subjective.
Yes, yes.
What you've basically concluded, looking at the suffering and how it should be dealt with and how it should be understood.
Yes.
Would you agree that if a concept like God did exist, or God did exist,
yes,
that would alter the very scope, the entire scope of the way perhaps that you might think about this particular issue of not reproducing and not having children?
Yes, but I think it would have implications in different ways. Like, for example, a lot of Muslims and a lot of Christians believe in the concept of hell.
Yes.
And many people believe that if at the time that somebody dies that they are not either a Muslim or a Christian, in many ways a particular sect of Islam or Christianity, like some Catholics say that Protestants will go to hell, for example, it would mean that you can argue that if God exists and hell exists in particular, that would be an even stronger reason not to procreate, because if you procreate, then you risk putting someone in hell forever, if that makes sense.
Yes.
It would also make me question, I guess the problem of evil would come up, and not even just the problem of evil of people doing evil things, but just the fact that, for example, like a lot of wild animals, with nothing to do with what humans are doing, they live pretty terrible lives, being eaten alive and this kind of thing. So I would question why a loving God would create a world like this, but it wouldn't necessarily mean that. My point is basically that if God does exist, it wouldn't mean that antinatalism is wrong. It might even have stronger arguments to not procreate.
But would you agree that the acceptance of a concept, hell or heaven, the understanding of suffering or the understanding of whether one should reproduce or not reproduce, that all of that, the reality of all of that, doesn't change of whether God exists or doesn't exist. It simply is, I don't find it palatable or I don't understand a particular concept. In other words, not understanding or comprehending something doesn't change the reality of whether that thing exists in the first place.
I will agree with that, yes. So I think I was saying, I've forgotten your name already, buddy, but I was saying to you before that...
Don't worry, it's quite easily forgotten.
I think that I'm not, in terms of like objective truth, I think there's like a state of affairs which exists, whether or not, like, I think we experience a state of affairs subjectively, like we could both experience something and have a completely different...
Yes.
But there is like a state of affairs, and whether God exists or not would be like an objective fact.
Yeah, it would be.
Whether or not I could comprehend it.
I agree. But the thing I'm going to say to you is that, you see, just because I find a particular concept unpalatable,
Yes.
or I don't understand the implications or the facets,
Yes.
or the reasons behind something, doesn't change the reality or whether the thing exists or doesn't exist.
Absolutely, and
right?
that's really important for anti-natalism.
So what I would say
just
to you,
finish this point. Sorry.
Sure.
It's not that I'm not happy about the state of affairs in the world, which is why I'm advocating for people not to
a lot of people probably are not.
Exactly, and it's not that the fact that I view the world in this way isn't because I want to view it in this way. And similarly, like, whether or not God exists wouldn't really have anything to do with whether or not I want it to.
Well,
I would try and be as logical as possible.
Let me ask you the question. Right?
Sure.
Because fundamentally, if the existence of something doesn't change by seeing certain things unfolding, and they might seem unpalatable or I might not understand them, then isn't it better to talk about the reasons to believe in that something in the first place? Because then the spectacles that we put on to judge all other matters are altered by the reality of the God existing in the first place.
Yes, just one thing, another word. When you say discuss the reasons to believe,
yes,
that feels a bit leading to me. I think you could say like the evidence as to whether or not it exists, rather than the reasons to believe. Because I'm not sure we should start from the premise of let's discuss all the reasons why this is true. We should maybe try and be as objective as possible. Again, I guess you have to start from somewhere.
The point I'm trying to make to you when I say reasons, I'm talking about established, reasoned, strong arguments.
Yes.
So it could be deductive arguments, right?
Yeah.
So that's a type of evidence, isn't it?
And that's a type of evidence, right? So for example, I believe my parents are my parents.
Yes.
I haven't had a DNA test.
Yes.
I don't stay up at night wondering whether I'm adopted.
Are they the real people? You
understand my point, yeah?
I'm not agnostic about that.
No, I know, alhamdulillah, I'm not agnostic about that, right? So the point is that there are many truths that are established as facts to us, despite not having analytical or empirical evidence, but we have good reasons and reasoned arguments and approaches to accept those realities.
Yes.
So similarly, I would say, if, for example, we look at the concept of God, the creator of the heavens and the earth, the question that I would have to ask you as an atheist or an agnostic is that, do you believe that this universe exists?
Yes.
Do you believe that it has to come from somewhere?
Depends what you mean by come from somewhere.
Well,
because the idea...
Can it come into existence by itself?
Well, in the same way that many people believe in an eternal God, I guess it's possible that there is also an eternal universe. Right. And in the sense then it didn't really come from anywhere, if that makes sense.
But then do you have good reasons to believe that the universe is eternal, despite most of the scientific body today saying that everything began
about 13 billion years
13.8 or 13.9 billion years ago, and it was the Big Bang, infinitesimally small, down to an infinitesimally small amount of matter and energy, and then it exploded into this Big Bang, and around 14 billion years ago, whatever we all began. The question I would ask you is that, why would you deny established evidence and facts like that in relation to something that you think may have happened?
Well, it's not that... Again, this is going back over 10 years to my physics classes, so if I get any of this wrong, I'm sorry.
So you're probably a lot better versed than I am.
Oh, no, this is only like a college, like sixth form physics. But I remember my physics teacher saying, we know what happened, and it was like a fraction of a second after the Big Bang. We don't know what happened before then.
Right.
So I'm not sure that the scientific consensus is that that the universe began with the Big Bang. I think the consensus is that what we view as the universe came from this thing that happened. But that's a little different to saying that the universe necessarily began.
If you look at the works of Einstein, even the people who are openly atheists, like Lawrence Krauss, I think he's written 200 or 300 books on physics. they all argue that there is a beginning of the universe.
Interesting. Because
Right?
I personally am not sure about that.
Even if we were to argue of some form of non-beginning,
Yeah.
nevertheless, I would ask you, is the universe contingent, relying on certain things being there for its existence? And are those things necessary to be assembled in a particular way for it to function in the way that it did? In other words, is it contingent and reliant? And anything that is contingent and reliant requires something preceding it. It cannot be the explanation for itself.
I'll agree with that. So, but I guess the argument then, because it wasn't my understanding that Lawrence Krauss said that the universe began 13 billion years ago and there was nothing before then. It was my understanding from the scientists
No,
that...
he doesn't say. He says, to be fair to him,
Yeah.
I don't want to misquote him. His version of nothing
Yes.
is not an absence of everything.
Yes.
His nothing is something.
Yes.
Because obviously, using your rationale and intuition,
Yeah.
it's completely illogical to assume that 0 plus 0 plus 0 could ever come to 1.
Yes.
So therefore, there has to be something that has to always be in existence.
See, I'm not too sure about that, to be honest. And this is where I was chatting with a couple of our guys before. We got a bit bogged down. And my point being that, because they were saying, like, do you agree that something can't come from nothing? And my point is that we don't have a nothing to test. And as far as we're aware, the world around us, there isn't a nothing anywhere.
I agree.
Like if you have an empty jar, it's full of molecules.
Yes.
So when you say that something can't come from nothing, the only time that a something would need to have come from nothing would be the beginning of the universe. And I'm not even sure that the universe has a beginning, if that makes
the
sense.
point I'm
Because sorry, just to finish this
go,
point,
please.
my understanding of the physics is that the scientific consensus is that 13 billion years ago the Big Bang happened.
Yeah.
But from my understanding was they don't know what happened before
course
the Big
they
Bang. And even if there was a before the Big
Yes.
Bang, if that makes sense.
Yes. See, the point I'm trying to make to you is that I agree that there can
What's up?
never be a situation where there is nothing. There always has to be something.
I don't know if there does always have to be something, because I just don't
Okay.
know what a nothing is.
Well, let me
Like, I
ask.
haven't seen one.
Well, we can
Why don't you define-
conceptualize what nothing is.
A complete absence of everything.
Exactly.
Okay, yes.
So the conception.
A complete, like,
so
void.
even though the reality of it may never exist,
Yeah.
but we can conceptualize as to what the definition of nothing is.
Yes.
It's the absence of everything.
Yes.
Okay. Now,
That would be my
in
understanding.
a
of
simple
nothing.
example, and I've used this a few times before, if I go into a kitchen
Yes.
and there's no flour, no eggs, no
Yeah.
oven, and there's no milk, there's no cream, there's no nothing basically, zero,
Yeah.
zip, zilch.
There's not even the kitchen.
There's not even the kitchen. Can I ever bake a cake?
No.
No. Now, if I can't bake a cake, and that is something quite simple with only a few little ingredients thrown together,
Yes.
even a child with her mum will sit there and make cupcakes or whatever, then what about this universe?
So, just to clarify, so in the absence of, if you say nothing is the absence of everything, even potentiality, nothing is the absence of everything, and from that nothing, even if lacking potentiality, can anything come?
We don't know, because we've never seen that
so this,
nothing.
I would say that you know better than that.
Well, no, but we don't know, because
I-
the only time that something would have needed to come from nothing is the beginning of the universe.
Yeah.
And we don't know what that was like.
What you don't suspend obvious. So I would say this is an obvious thing.
I'm not sure it is obvious.
Just like the kitchen example here.
Sure.
If you lack anything to bring about that cake,
Yes.
even the kitchen itself isn't there.
Yes.
The answer is logic. Yes, logic tells you
But
that this is not a potential. Even
The kitchen isn't a nothing, though. So if you walk into and you see an empty fridge, that's
I'm
not
saying
a
no
nothing.
kitchen, no fridge.
Okay, but even the lack of kitchen, that isn't a nothing.
So what you're
My
arguing
point-
for? So what you're arguing? I just want to clarify, because in your responses now to Abbas, you're actually arguing for a something.
Am I?
Yeah.
For the kitchen is an example of a something. I agree.
Yes,
The kitchen
yes.
is a something. Like if you have, I don't know what the lack of kitchen would be.
Or the empty fridge.
An empty,
Or
the
the
empty
empty
fridge.
fridge is a something.
There's plenty of stuff that's in that fridge. There's lots of molecules in
Yeah.
there. That's a something.
Yeah.
My point would be that in the world that we're in, what we conceive of as nothing, like the empty fridge. No, you can't get a cake.
That's not what we're conceiving of.
Well, no, it's just so to use the it is the nothing of the kitchen. In the world that we're in, the nothing of the kitchen a cake won't
Sure.
appear.
So
but when we're talking about the beginning of the universe, we're not talking about the world that we're in.
But you see, brother, let me ask you, let me sort of suggest another example for you. Fairness is to remain consistent with one's worldview.
Yes. That's very important to be consistent.
If you were to walk into your, let's say, 8-bedroom house with your double garage next door,
I had such a house.
Suddenly,
then
you see,
procreation is no longer a choice.
suddenly,
life's great.
you open the door from your house leading into the garage,
Yeah.
and there's a beautiful Aston Martin and a Rolls Royce sitting there, right?
Yeah.
You would never ever conceptualize that those cars somehow popped into existence from nothing.
Yes.
So intuitively, I would say that you know that that's an impossibility.
I would say
There's no rational, even 0.1000001% doubt in your mind of it coming from nothing.
I agree.
Right?
Well, the nothing within, when we talk about nothing colloquially within the universe, because again, if those cars weren't there, it would be an empty garage.
Even within our universe,
Yeah.
with all the atoms and the molecules and everything flying around, you would never assume that somehow these things have just rearranged themselves
Agreed.
and become the Aston Martin.
Agreed.
And
Totally.
that is coming into existence from already something around
Yes,
it.
exactly, yes.
Yes? So what I would say to you, brother, is that to remain consistent, it would just be even more absurd to argue that the universe, with more stars than grains of sand on every beach on Earth, all that energy and mass and its organization, okay, and the laws of physics and the laws of chemistry and biology that govern the universe, that somehow I'm going to posit that that did come from nothing, or it's possible to come from nothing.
Just to be clear, as I was saying before, my position isn't, as I said, we don't know what happened before. From my understanding is that we don't know what happened before the Big Bang. If there is an eternal universe, or there's ideas like the multi-universe, again, a multiverse, I'm probably butchering all the physics, and I do apologise for that.
That is a term.
There are plenty of ideas out there as to what happened before the Big Bang. So it's not that my position is that something would come from nothing. All I'm saying is that I'm not going to commit to the position that 100% that something can't come from nothing, because as far as we're aware, we haven't seen a nothing. And for the universe to come into existence, that would only need to happen once. Because once the universe does come into existence, we don't have any nothing anymore.
what you're arguing
We've got
for
a whole lot of something.
So you seem to be arguing for, give me the miracle and the rest is okay.
I don't know if it is a miracle.
So nothing, something coming from a lack of absence of everything, including potentiality. How else would you describe it?
I'm not sure how you're using potentiality. That's just me being dumb.
Potentiality is like the potential to bring about any change.
Yeah.
When you have an absence of everything, even that is missing. Because it's literally, there is no thing there.
So maybe then, if this argument is true, it wouldn't mean that God necessarily brought it. You could have an eternal universe then. Oh, yeah, like some of the multiverse ideas would be true. Yeah, there are options, sure. But again, all I'm just going to say is I'm not going to commit to the position that something can't come from nothing. Because again, I don't need to keep droning on about this. We just don't have enough.
You know what it is?
And the intuitive things that you're talking about like the cars and the cakes, I totally agree intuitively, but that's not nothing. That's a whole lot of something. And it's within the universe, whereas we're not talking about what happens within the universe. We're talking about what happened to begin the universe.
Yes. So the point
it could have been the forces outside of that.
This is why I said to you...
Sorry, I didn't mean to...
This is why I said to you when we first started our conversation, good reasons and reasoned arguments or deductive arguments.
Yes.
So let's look at some of the possibilities, and you tell me if it's reasonable to actually posit a creator.
Sure.
So, a universe from nothing, I think most people...
Put your arms every time. You can put them together.
I think you've got the message out anyway.
That's sorry,
no more kids.
And go vegan.
Yeah. Look, the thing is, we can look at the particular scenarios.
Yeah.
Now, I agree that it can be difficult to say, I want to put my flag onto the mast and I'm going to say, this is what happened categorically.
Yes.
Because you could say, look, I don't actually know.
Yeah.
But that does not mean to say, therefore, I will not think about things either. It doesn't mean that I won't look at the potential possibilities of how it might have happened. And maybe to remain consistent, to remain perhaps intellectually faithful to reason, that I will go with the decision or the conclusion that seems most reasonable to me.
Yes.
Right?
And I agree that in life you have to do that.
Of course.
The example with your parents,
Absolutely.
it's not that you know 100% of your parents.
Absolutely.
But you go through your interactions with your parents, assuming that
I've
they are
never
your
been to
parents.
Australia, right?
Yes.
Now, the photographs could be of New Zealand.
Yeah.
The people could be lying to me that this was Australia.
It's a big conspiracy. To
Absolutely, right? The world is
Australia
flat,
exists.
right?
Yes.
But the reasons why I don't believe those things is because I find an overwhelming amount of testimony,
Yes.
of reasons to believe otherwise.
Yeah.
And the alternative for me is so unlikely that it's, you know, almost on, you know, wearing tin hats, foil hats and all that sort of stuff. It seems ridiculous to me.
I'll agree. So intuitively, yes, like with the, and it's because when we think intuitively about nothing, we think about the empty fridge, the empty garage that we were talking about before.
Yeah.
But
So
I wouldn't know empirically how you could test this because we don't have a nothing to test whether something could come from it. I don't know how empirically to do that.
You've used empiricism.
Yes.
When in fact most of our convictions are not empirical at all.
No, I'll agree with that.
Most of our convictions, things that we will, you know, you may sacrifice your life for your children, or for your mother, or for your father, right? You'll give up your life to save them, right? Yet you don't have empiricism to do that, but you do it because you have good reasons to believe that they are your parents and those are your children, right?
I mean, you do have some empirical evidence, but not like what people would think of.
For the vast majority of people, they haven't gone to
the DNA
labs and had to make sure, are these my kids? Is that my mom? Is that my dad? Right? Okay. So now the point that I'm trying to make to you is that there's a few options. The coming from nothing, an absence of everything, absence of even potential, is illogical, I would say.
Yeah.
Is irrational. I think it's unreasonable. To say that there's a multiverse or an infinite universe, you're now arguing that there's infinite energy, infinite mass, it's come from nowhere, it's always existed, and when we say infinite, remember, infinite is a mathematical construct. As soon as you apply it to the real world, absurdities come out of it.
Because infinity times 2 is infinity.
Exactly. If I take one universe out of an infinite series, how many universes do I have?
An infinite number.
It's still infinite. So it leads to absurdities. So therefore, the infinite realm seems absurd as well.
Yes.
And what does infinite energy and infinite mass mean anyway? Uncountable. Uncountable? If I take one, it's still uncountable. It doesn't make sense. So what we see around us is we see that this universe exists. It seems to have a beginning, and there's organization to it, and it seems contingent. You need hydrogen, you need iron, you need the periodic table. You need certain things in that to even enable a life-giving universe. And those parameters are such that you have to have hundreds of decimal places and things positioned, measured out, just so there's a possibility of biological life, right? So now where did it come from? Now we can say, okay, it always existed. Then I would say, okay, what's the evidence of it always existing? Well, most people are saying it came into existence. So there isn't the evidence for that. Then we say it came from something else, material. So there was maybe another universe that came before it, right? Okay, can you have an infinite series of material explanations for this explanation? Could you or I talk? Could you and I be speaking if there was an infinite series of dominoes that had to fall to get to this point?
Meaning that...
Could you ever traverse an infinite series to get to this point? If there was an infinite past of events, could you ever get to this event?
Me personally.
Well, us talking here now.
This is an event.
So meaning that.
So let me.
Sorry, I think I'm not.
Let me give you another
following.
example, right? Okay. Let's say, and this example has been used many times, but let's say there's a soldier. And he has to take a shot. But he has to ask his sergeant. Sergeant, can I take the shot? He says, hold on, I have to ask my sergeant. Sergeant, can you take the shot? He says, I have to ask my sergeant. You go back infinitely, uncountable series. Will he ever take the shot?
From what I understand, no.
No. Right? So this universe would have never come into existence if it relied upon an infinite series of events leading to it. Therefore, there has to be something outside of time and space that brought this universe into existence. Now, whether you say conscious or just material, we can have that discussion.
Well, that was my point before about the something coming from nothing, is that the rules within our universe wouldn't necessarily need to apply to the creation of the universe, to the thing outside of it.
So now you're appealing to an exception which is counterintuitive, I would say counter-science.
I wouldn't necessarily say so, because I'm not sure why, if we say that, again, the scientific consensus, this universe that we observe began 13 billion years ago, it doesn't necessarily follow that the rules within our universe necessarily apply to whatever was before then, if there was something before then.
But you see,
and again, before the Big Bang, as I said before, my position has always been, what I was taught in my science class, we don't know what happened before the Big Bang.
But you see, there are certain things that we can conceptualize about events, and I would say something coming from nothing.
Yes.
Is not reliant necessarily on our universe or any other universe or any other realm for that matter, because it's a basic concept. It's a basic concept that if you have something material and it is made up of certain things and they are organized in a certain way, then they could not have come from an absence of everything that it relies upon for its existence.
But this is what but these are the rules within our own universe. And I promise I'm not saying this is like a get out of jail free card.
It seems like that a bit to me, but anyway.
Why would you postulate? Why would you even postulate that the rules could be different?
Pardon?
Why would you postulate?
Because I see no reason why what we see around us, the rules of our universe, I see no reason why the rules of our universe need to apply to whatever was before then.
So which is the rule specifically
the rule that we have, and when we think of nothing, that something can't come from nothing. The garage example, the fridge example. And you're saying that when you say that something can't come from nothing is beyond our universe, I totally disagree. Because something can't come from nothing is based upon our observations of the universe. I will agree. And when we talk about that, about the nothings in our universe, the empty garages and the empty fridges, something can't come from there. But I don't see why that would at all apply to whatever was before this universe, even if there was something.
Because I think there are certain concepts that transcend our reality.
Would the impossibility of infinites be one of those concepts?
Sorry?
Would the impossibility of infinites be one of those concepts that transcend?
Well, when we look at the concept of infinite, it's a mathematical construct.
Yes.
In reality, it's actually meaningless once we apply it to the physical realm.
Yes. So that wouldn't apply to God.
And the reason, this is the point I'm trying to make to you. That you see, God is outside of physics, maths, biology, and our concept of understanding things.
Yeah.
So my argument to you was, it is reasonable to assume that there always has to be something.
I disagree.
No, let me just finish my point, right? And that something could be two things.
Yeah.
It simply could be matter and energy as a necessary existence.
Yes.
Or it could be something outside of matter and energy, something supernatural.
Yes.
Those are I think those are the only two main possibilities. It might be, some people might come with others, but I think these are the two main ones. Now, my argument would be, if this material something just existed as a hard fact, as some people, by the way, have professed, some atheists have professed, it must have had the potential to bring all existences into existence. It should have had that potential in there.
So this was a material thing.
A material thing that has potential to bring all realities into existence.
So this material thing already existed?
Always existed. And it had the potential to bring all realities into existence. Because
including its own reality? Though.
Well, no, because it always existed, right?
Yes.
So it doesn't need to bring its own reality into existence.
He's giving you one of the options.
Right?
I'm
giving you one of your options, potential options, right?
Okay.
This is your position.
If it didn't have the potential to bring this universe or other universes into existence, then we wouldn't have existed. So it had to have the potential to bring it into existence.
But when you said about, just to go to your point about something being material.
Let me just finish, if you're not sorry. Now, if it had the potential to bring all realities into existence, but it did it without consciousness, without deciding when, then all of the potential realities that could have come from this necessary existence had an eternity to already come into existence. But we came into existence 13.8 billion years ago.
The observable universe came
into existence 13.8 billion years ago.
Yes.
If every domino, every potential from that existence would have fallen eternally in the past, all of the energy through entropy, for example, we say that energy dissipates over time, yet we don't see the universe without energy. It hasn't diluted itself or dissipated to an extent where we don't no longer see the stars. There's still energy. The Earth is still warm. Right? It has a hot core. We know that trillions of years down the road, in years down the road, the stars will disappear. Energy will be exhausted. Right?
I just agree with you. I'm taking you on.
What I'm saying to you is
I don't know if this is true.
what I'm saying to you is that, therefore, to me, that necessary existence without having decision making, without having flourishing, without deciding when to bring into existence, doesn't seem to make sense.
I get why intuitively it doesn't make sense. Again, I'll keep going back to that point about. There was a point you said about the laws of physics and the laws of chemistry and all this kind of thing. And again, I don't see why these are the laws that apply within our universe. And as you said, as far as we're aware, our universe began 13 billion years ago.
Would you not say
why would these laws be consistent?
Would you not say that it is wise?
They would need to apply.
Would you not say that it is wise that because science is done with repeatability, right?
Yes.
If we boil water and it boils at 100 degrees centigrade,
you think it will next time.
And then little Lucy does the same, Johnny does the same, the teacher does the same. We then hypothesize, we present a theory that actually this is the more reasonable position to have.
Yes.
We never say, actually, you know what, that same water that boiled at 100 next time could boil at 50 degrees centigrade with the same atmospheric, controls in place. With all the same controls in place, we would postulate that it is going to boil at 100 degrees.
But would it boil at 100 degrees in a universe with different rules of physics and science?
But now we're comparing it to different standards, right?
Yes, I'm saying that it might have different standards before the creation of this universe.
But that's not my claim, you see, because what you're claiming is you're claiming something that you don't know exists.
I agree. I don't know what happened before the Big Bang.
So you're postulating effectively something that you don't even have any evidence for.
See just help to move the conversation.
Sure.
So what he's talking about is not science itself, the laws that we discover. He's talking about a principle on which science is built.
Yes.
And that principle is that we see causes and effects.
Yes.
Okay.
I agree.
Now that is not a scientific claim, it's a philosophical claim. Why? Because it's an observation that we can make.
I think I agree. It's philosophical in the sense of the way that our universe works. You have causes and effects.
So this is what I'm saying. So what you do, and that's the only way we know how this holding this principle
within our universe. Yes. Within our universe.
Yeah. But this is what I'm saying to you.
Yeah.
So the principle on which we do any empirical investigation, any working out of anything, even your concept of animal suffer or human suffering.
Yeah.
This is all based upon this idea of cause and effect. Okay.
Yes.
Now, what you and this is not science. This is a principle.
Yeah.
It's a foundation, one of the foundations on which you build the scientific narrative.
Yeah.
What Brother Abbas has been trying to explain is that things that exist require explanations.
Yes.
And they can't explain themselves because logically things can't bring themselves about. We're told that, did you create yourself? It's a logical impossibility.
Yeah.
I can't bring myself about. I need an explanation for my being here.
Yeah.
If we collect all of the things that require explanations, it includes the universe.
Yeah.
So the universe itself is a thing that requires explanation.
Again, this is where... So if everything began over the observable universe 13 billion years ago, that would include the laws of science, laws of physics,
so laws are,
whatever they may be.
Just to clarify a point. So laws are not things in and of themselves.
Yes.
They're patterns we've observed.
Agreed. Yeah. But even those patterns would have begun 13 billion years ago,
100%.
as far as we're aware. Yeah. But we're trying to apply those patterns outside of the observable universe. So we're not trying to apply them outside of the universe.
The laws and patterns are observed through empiricism
within our universe.
Which is the scientific method.
Yes,
Now,
but this method's... But in a, sorry, yes.
Sorry.
And I'll bring you the next
So
point.
what we're not doing is we're not looking at the method, we're looking at the foundations upon which the method is
Philosophical concepts that underpin
So
everything.
these are separate things. So whether or not the laws are... Because by bringing another universe, all you're doing is you're moving the problem back one place. Yeah. You're right.
Sorry, no,
You're right.
Spider. Sorry, yeah, all good.
So the thing that underlies
You're going to tell you the spider.
the observations, we'll see that tomorrow morning.
Sorry, mate.
Tomorrow morning you're going to have all muscles.
That's it. Suddenly his eyes are like, and that's caused by the
Just
spider.
don't come back and hunt us.
The thing that underlies this is the principle that there is cause and effect, and we need to explain things that are there. So even if there were an infinite number of universes, they all require an explanation.
I don't agree with that necessarily, and just maybe I think I'm explaining it badly.
Yeah.
I think you give the great example of the boiling water. So we boil water. It's a boil of water. That was terrible English. We boil water at 100 degrees today, and we're going to boil it tomorrow, and we're going to boil it in a different country, and it's still going to be at 100 degrees. That's just great. That wouldn't necessarily apply for a situation where our laws of physics and our other...
No, but you're misunderstanding the example, because
I think I'm missing something.
We've removed the scientific observation
Yes.
from the principle on which it's based.
No,
So
but
we're not talking about boiling the water
Yes.
at a particular temperature.
Yes.
If you went to Mount Everest, the boiling point would be much lower.
That's
because
right.
the atmospheric pressure is lower.
Yes.
So maybe
That's
80
fair.
degrees there, you could boil water.
Yeah.
If you went somewhere very deep in the earth, the boiling point would rise.
But you would be able to consistently track that.
But what the point is you're missing. The point that you're missing is when we're trying to boil the water, how do we do it? What do? We get a flame,
heat,
we put something in a container with water in it. What's the assumption?
The assumption is that it would be follow the same rules as when you did it before.
No, but how is the water boiling? What's the assumption?
I mean, God, I'm going back to chemistry. The heat causes the atoms to move or something.
So there is a cause
Yes.
that brings about an effect.
Yes.
Now there's no way to prove that. We have to assume that. And
We observe it, I think.
We observe it.
Yes.
But we assume that there is a cause for the effect that we're seeing.
Yes.
And the cause we assume is the water boiling.
Yes.
Which is why in the experiment, when I'm looking at all my parameters,
Yes.
one of the parameters isn't the angle on which I'm holding my clipboard.
Yes.
We don't include that.
No. We don't think it's relevant.
We assume that this is not causing that effect.
Yeah.
So there's a principle on which all of our science is built, and the assumption of cause and effect, separate from the science.
Yes.
So we're studying this now. We're taking that principle now,
Yeah.
which is irrelevant to whichever laws that may exist in whichever
couldn't agree.
universe.
I'm not so sure it does,
In which
though.
universe
I'm really
you-
not so sure it does.
So then the flip question, just to make you understand.
Sure.
Do you believe there is a universe in which there is no cause and effect?
I don't know if there could be a universe
No,
where
I'll
there's a
ask you
cause
the
effect.
question.
I don't know. You're asking me an empirical yes, no. And
No, it's not an empirical.
You're asking me, is there? I don't even know if there are other universes. I can't say, because the multiverse theory is that there are many different universes out there, and some of them could actually have different laws of physics than ours do.
But that's not. But you're missing the point.
But the observation. I get the observation. The point of the cause and effects. But we observed that stuff has causes, right?
Things require explanation.
Yes, like the heat. I don't even know if that would apply in the universe with different laws of physics. Like, I really
Cause
don't.
and effect.
We don't. I would be. It would be very. It would seem overconfident for me to say that the law of cause and effect would apply in a completely different situation, a completely different universe with different rules governing it.
So this is where I feel that it's you would rather than going to where the conclusion obviously would lead.
Yes.
You will postulate anything, no matter how improbable, as a fig leaf to cover the nakedness of the fact that you don't have any reasonable position. So you're saying
I think that's quite an uncharitable frame.
Sorry, I'm just.
You're saying no. You've said that I don't have a reasonable position, and that I've only got this as a fig leaf because I'm worried that EFDawah guys are going to convert me to Islam.
We're not doing. No,
not that at all. Not that at all.
No, we're not trying to convert you.
My point is simply that.
So what was your name? I don't know.
John.
Not a fig leaf. Let's say banana leaf. They're a bit
No. Banana leaves are quite big.
No,
No, you're saying your assumption is that I've got this because, oh shit, these guys have got me. They've got me good, and I'm worried that I'm going to look. The comments are all going to be full of people going, "You pwned that."
Let me just clarify.
But that was an uncharitable framing.
Let me just clarify.
My point is simply this. It goes back to the very first thing I said. I will end the conversation after this, just because we've gone on for a long time. I do appreciate the chat. I really do appreciate it. It just keeps going back to what I first said, which is about not knowing what happened before the Big Bang. Like, we don't know what that environment was like.
I understand. And
all of my intuitions about what could have happened are based upon the environment we find ourselves in, the universe we find ourselves in, that happened 13 billion years ago. So and one theory of the multiverse, and I'm the furthest away from an expert on this. You guys already know a lot more of this. But one theory of the multiverse is that there are universes with different laws of physics than ours. And that would mean that even the observations that we make in that universe could be different, including
things
those
like universe contingent.
I have no idea. I genuinely don't know.
So John, it's not my statement wasn't about your intentions.
Yeah.
You're a sincere. I have no reason to assume that you're not a sincere person and that you're holding a position. What I'm saying though is that the positions you arrive at in your reasoning are so improbable. Really, I would say that to you just straightforwardly. They're so improbable that I could not conceptualize. There would be no way first for me to conceptualize that when you have the absence of everything, even potentiality, that can bring rise to anything. This does not make sense.
And by the way, I'm not committed to that position either. As I said before, we don't know what happened before the Big Bang, and I'm not committed to that position.
This is part of that figly thing. Not pejoratively, I'm just giving you an example. And then you have the idea that multiverse theory, zero evidence from anyone about multiverse theory. It's just something that's proposed mathematically as a way to explain the fine-tuning that we see within this universe that allows biological life to exist. And then on top of that, postulating a universe in which there can be no cause and effect. I think these improbabilities, if we times them together, multiply them together, we would end up with a number that was so small in terms of a reasonableness of a position.
But your improbability is based upon the observations within our universe, and the conversation keeps going outside of our universe.
Right, I think
I think it comes down to I'm not confident to make claims about possibilities outside of the observable universe, and the core of this conversation is about what has happened outside of the observable universe, and I'm just not confident to make. It is because we don't need God from. Again, when I said the fraction, my physics teacher said we don't have good evidence of what happened a fraction of a second after the Big Bang. And it's based upon that I don't see a need for God from within this point.
Let me ask you a question.
But this whole conversation has taken place before that fraction of a second, and in many ways outside of the universe.
Let me ask you a question.
Okay, then I really do need to.
Yeah, sure. For argument's sake, let's say God exists.
Okay.
Right?
So we'll begin from the position that you're right and No, of course.
I'm not saying that you have to accept that notion.
For argument's sake.
I'm saying for argument's sake, let's say if God exists, right? The arguments that you're postulating would, in your view, nullify that reality.
No.
Well, because
if God exists, then the arguments I'm saying are wrong.
No. I'm saying if God does exist, a person who wishes to deny that reality can postulate any argument, no matter how far-flung it might be, no matter how unrealistic it might be, no matter how improbable it might be, to deny that reality. You would accept that they could do that, right?
I agree. It'd be a bit like you getting the DNA test, your parents are your parents, and then you come up with some weird conspiracy theorist about how they're not your parents.
Because you could argue, okay, it's 18 billion to 1, but there is still one chance.
Yes, that they've got it wrong. Yes.
So what I'm trying to say to you is that we can argue away everything if we really want to. We're very good at that.
Sure.
We can argue anything away.
Sure.
Now, for us Muslims, the very concept that we first spoke about of having children, suffering, all of these concepts that people in a purely material world cannot conceptualize beyond that which what they feel, it answers those fundamental questions for us. Not only that, but we don't rely purely upon these philosophical arguments. Even though Allah does say in the Quran, are you the creators of yourself?
Or did you come from nothing?
Or did you come from nothing? So that's one could argue it's a rhetorical question. And it makes a person sit down and think, well, actually, did I create myself? In other words, did everything just come from nothing? Are we the creators of ourselves? In other words, Allah is telling us and informing us that if you use your reason, that you will arrive at the something has to always exist. And this something, because you see order, you see intelligence, you see laws, that it has to have intelligence, that it has to have will. Now, the thing is, how could we establish your argument or my argument above that of just postulating or appealing to logic or appealing to reason or even appealing to consistency of in terms of laws or intuition? And what we would argue is that we have another feather in our hat, as it were, which is that we have something within our hands, tangible, that we can test today, that claims to be from that creator. So, apart from those philosophical arguments, I would say that we have something tangible that's claiming to be a miracle from that creator. So Allah says in the Quran that, do you not ponder on this Quran? Had it come from anyone other than your Lord, surely within it you would have found many contradictions and errors. So Allah is telling you not only to use your reason when it comes to how the universe or how you came into existence, but Allah is focusing your attention on the Quran itself. And Allah is saying, this is a miracle. Do you not ponder? Do you not reason? So He's bringing you back from that rhetorical question back to the Quran itself. So what I would suggest to you is that, fine, to some extent using philosophical arguments, I would say respectfully, anyone who appeals to things coming from nothing, to me it seems magic.
And again, the last time I have not committed myself to something.
No, I understand. I'm not saying that that's your concrete position, because you've said, look, you don't know, right? But all I'm saying is anyone that does postulate something coming from an absence of everything, including potential, for me this is like talking about magic, Harry Potter. You're talking about Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter, right? However,
I don't think I'd be very charitable.
However, right?
We're not saying that you.
No, not you personally.
No. But I'm saying, even if you say that dismiss someone's thoughts as magic, people can look in the Quran and see flying hawk, on a winged beast.
But that's fine.
I think it'd be rude of them to just dismiss it.
No. If they want to, they can come bring your arguments, bring your discussions on that. Because you see, for us as Muslims, Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, flying on Buraq, the animal that was Buraq, a winged animal that was the size. It doesn't give us a description of what the animal was. It's between a mule and a donkey, along those lines. But it doesn't tell us it was a mule or a donkey. Okay. That concept of him flying to the heavens or being taken to the heavens is not a concept that I use as an evidence for the Quran or for Islam. That was an evidence that was given to the people at the time. So when they tested him, if he really did fly to Jerusalem first, knowing that he'd never been there, they got people from Jerusalem who intimately knew the area to question him about things. And then we're told that Allah put the vision of Jerusalem in front of him. And he explained the minute details, and they walked away. They realized this was something. But that's for them, that's not for us. But there are objective reasons today that you or I can look at to verify whether this evidence for the Quran being supernatural outside of the capacity of human beings is a rational conclusion or just, as you say, a story of somebody flying somewhere.
No, just saying that I think that would be dismissive.
What I would urge you to do is look into those miracles. What are these miracles that these Muslims are claiming? The grammatical miracle, the structural miracles. Look at the works of Professor Raymond Farin, for example, about the structure of the Quran. Look at the works of Angelica Newith about the preservation of the Quran, and Harvard Professor William A. Graham, etc., many others, right? When you accumulate all the different facets of evidence to support the Quran, my view, despite being born in this country, having the religion often very looked upon very critically, my own investigation has led me to accept, not based upon fairy tales or flying carpets or anything else, but for objective reasons, arriving at a conclusion that actually the beginning of the universe, as described in this miraculous text, seems to resonate more with me than things coming from nothing. Now, all I'm going to ask you, brother, is this: that if we wish to be honest, and we wish to truly go wherever the evidence takes us, then I've made some big claims. You don't have to accept them because maybe you haven't studied them, right? But what I would urge you to do is study them, look into them, because you have a view about the world, and I think it comes from a good place. I don't think you're a bad person. I think you want to do what's good for society, and this is your way of doing that, right? Clearly, you feel strongly enough to come out on a cold winter's morning and speak about what you believe, right? But all I'm going to say to you is that just ensure, for your own sake, because if what I'm telling you is true, and there is profound evidence, then the consequence of your beliefs will be drastically altered. The very perception and conception of your ideas will be transformed, because now you'll have reasons to believe differently. Because your knowledge based upon your subjective view, his on his view, mine on my view, you know, we could be at loggerheads on the most basic things. But I would say if there is a creator, surely that creator will guide its creation and give them the information that is necessary to lead the best possible life, and give them explanation for the things that you're so concerned and worried about. The problem of evil, the injustice in the world, and all the heartbreak and the things that we're seeing, especially in Palestine, right, where they're being completely butchered and murdered, right? But it will change the whole concept of things. But all I'm going to say to you is, humbly, I would say to you, just look at the evidence. And at least spend some time, more time than what phone I'm going to buy, what holiday to fly on to, which airline's got the best ratings, who's going to serve me the better meal. I would say allocate more time to investigating this. And the reason for that is that surely if God does exist, then your eternal existence in the hereafter surely has to be valued at more than anything that you or I could possess in this entire world. And in fact, Allah says on the Day of Judgment, even if they come with the whole world and everything in it, on that day it will not be accepted from them. So that's the price, we believe, of faith and belief in the Creator. Now, I'm not saying accept everything I've said, but what I am saying to you is that you seem like a truth seeker. You seem like somebody who wants to know. Just have a look at the evidence. Contact us. You can email us. You can phone me. Look, I heard this is about Islam. I heard that about the Quran. I heard that about, what do you have to say about it? But all I'm going to say to you is look at the evidence. Study the evidence. Why is it profound? Why is it a miracle? What makes it outside the capacity of a human being? And if you're convinced, the rational thing to do would be to accept it. The reasonable thing to do would be accept. That's all we're saying, brother. Otherwise, you know, the philosophical arguments, they can be endless. If philosophy was the answer to the existence of the Creator, or recognizing the existence of the Creator, or denying it, Aristotle, Plato, Al-Ghazali, and all the other philosophers and people who had much greater philosophical arguments and understandings than you and me would have settled the matter. But the reality is we're still discussing philosophy today, right? So clearly philosophy is not necessarily the answer, but I believe that it has some good arguments to possibly point you in the right direction. But the evidence is separate from the philosophy. So just have a look at that, inshallah ta'ala, and see where that takes you. Yeah, take our card, brother.
Oh, great,
and we've got a free Quran if you'd like one.
That's all right, I've got
a really good translation. But, you know, just get hold of us, reach out, and we'll talk. We'll hear more about what you have to say.
Can I shout out?
I've already got 3 kids, so I can't go back now. And
build a time machine. I
can't go back. I've already got 3. Mashallah, Imran's got kids, you know, and so we can't go back. We already have children. But we believe, from our perspective, that this life is a test. And yes, despite there being turmoil and pain and suffering, Allah says, do you say that you will believe and then we won't test you? Allah then lists the reasons and the ways that He will test us. In life, in death, in sickness, in health, in poverty, in riches. In every aspect, Allah says, I will test you. To differentiate which ones are the true believers in Allah. And those who manage to pass that test that Allah has put on humanity, for them is paradise. Now, we may say, well, I don't agree with that test. I don't like that test. I don't like hell. I don't like this concept. Guess what? Not liking something doesn't change the reality of whether it exists or it doesn't exist, right? That's the important thing here. What happens is a lot of people, they say, well, what sort of a God would do this? What sort of a God would do that? Mate, it doesn't matter what you think. It doesn't matter what your views are, because your views 100 years ago would have been different from what they are today. And 500 years ago, it would have been different from what they would have been 100 years ago. You are a product of your nurture and your nature. And much of it is nurture, and perhaps some of it is nature, right?
I say, mate, I do need to head off.
Yeah, there's not a problem.
But anyway,
but you know, I'm sorry, right? I do go on, right? But that's our concern and love for you.
Yeah, I
right?
do appreciate it.
But you know, please do reach out, and maybe we'll have a conversation in the future.
Thank you very much.
It was really, really nice speaking to you.
Thank you very much.
All the best.
I appreciate it.
I've said anything on...
No.
Yeah, if we sort of said, he said the fig leaf, I didn't mention the fig leaf, right?
I was just giving a metaphor.
So
it's very dramatic.
he was a bit upset by that, I could tell. You know,
I don't know, mate. We're all here at the park.
You could have mentioned something else.
You can characterise people's arguments in a more charitable way.
I've got to say, I do feel like his framing of yours was accurate. I know you're going to say.
Well, that would imply that I'm trying to get out.
No. What it is he was discussing the almost absurdities of some things you were claiming. You know, multiverse and things like that. You know, I'm always wondering where are you getting these from?
But there's I'm just going to say, but the intention behind it, the idea that I'm thinking, I'm really stuck in, and I need to concoct some argument, because I know deep down, and I do find this, I have to say, I do find this with EFDawah guys quite a lot. A lot of them go, but you know what I'm saying is true.
Yeah.
And therefore, you just you are rejecting what we are saying because of this. And I'm like, come on, mate. At least we'll be sincere.
You know what it is? We wouldn't. I didn't judge you like. I didn't judge you.
I think it's been a very friendly chat. I've definitely chatted with EFDawah guys before, whose aim was to make me look stupid in front of their YouTube audience.
That's wrong.
And go, what is this ridiculousness?
No. That's wrong.
I think, look, I don't want to do that. Again, I think that pointing at winged horses or criticising Muhammad in a very uncharitable way is really not a way. That's how some people engage in conversations about Islam.
But you know what it is, brother? You can ask the question, but there's often one way which is a mocking and a derogatory terminology that's used, and the other one is, look, your Quran says that, or the Prophet, the Hadith, it says that the Prophet Muhammad flew on this. I find that difficult to appreciate or understand. You know, that's respectful.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that.
No, definitely.
You know, I don't understand how the Quran could have been preserved. I don't understand how Muhammad could be a prophet, because I read this about the Prophet, and that doesn't sit with me. I have no problem with people asking me those questions. The problem is when people start to do name calling.
Yeah, I agree.
In a manner which, if I spoke about your own mother or your own father or your kids in that way, you'd be very insulted, right?
Absolutely.
So similarly, I would be insulted if you said that about my parents, but I'd be more insulted about somebody that I regard and respect and love more than anything else in this world.
I agree.
So it's about being, sensitive to people's issues and understandings and beliefs, but that doesn't mean to say that we stop debate or discussion.
You debate them, you criticise. I don't think assuming intentions as well. I've heard a lot of people say, like, I've got friends who were raised Muslim, Islamic parents, and they've left the religion. They're accused of taking money and all this kind of stuff. I saw someone make a joke out of it. It was like, where are my shekels? Where are my like, I've apparently done this for money. Like,
no, I think, you know what it is? I think there is
I just don't think assuming intentions.
I agree. And there is
again, I do a lot of vegan outreach.
I agree.
And although I'm basically criticising people and saying what you're doing is causing all this suffering, I know it's nothing to do with intention. It's nothing to do with stuff like that. I used to be animals. Look, so I just think that it's better to
look, at the end of the day,
and I do think this in general. This has been a very friendly chat.
Dawah guys, the word dawah means to invite.
Yes.
You don't invite somebody to dinner or in your company by mocking them and making them look stupid.
And turning to the camera, right? You see, right. What an idiot.
Because that's not the way to invite. And this is what the Prophet, peace be upon him, told us. And this is what the Quran says, that invite them and return or retaliate with that which is better. And when you speak about Islam, speak with beauty and eloquence. Don't just bash people and be rude to people, because we believe that if I turn you away with bad actions,
I'm going to burn in hell.
No.
You could have but you could have convinced me to join
you missed the point. You missed the point. If I turn you away because of my negativity, because of my being less charitable and decent, then I will be questioned on the Day of Judgment, and you will have an excuse against me that I didn't become Muslim because I saw these Muslims. They had no manners. They treated me badly. So I thought that the religion must be obviously propagating and encouraging this. So Allah will say that on that day, the person will come and accuse you, and you will be held accountable. So it's a very serious thing, and we take it seriously.
No, definitely. It's been a very friendly chat.
It was really nice to speak to you.
Thank you very much.
Maybe we'll have another conversation again.
Take care, guys.
Nice speaking to you.